there's no shortage of negative information out there to feed our negativity bias. Like, we could go for days and months for the rest of our lives just consuming catastrophic stuff. So we do need to override it often. Mm-hmm. And the thing I find really cool and inspiring is that it is more within our control than we think. And so our genetics do account for a huge chunk of whether or not we're going to be, optimist or pessimist. Circumstances, of course, will prevail, and it may determine whether or not we're going to be gleeful on a certain day or down. But research does show that about 40% of our quote unquote sense of happiness, like our perceived life satisfaction in the moment, is a direct relationship about what we're choosing to do or not do. Right. And there is research around, like, there are 10 kind of easily accessible positive emotions. So things like joy, like interest, like which could come from being curious, or inspiration, or serenity, pride, love, and a few others where we could consciously tap into that.
Welcome to Ideology Podcast, Jodi.
Great. Thank you for having me here. Excited to chat with you.
So I just absolutely love everything that you say. I feel like it's come at an important time in my life when I realize I'm exactly the kind of person you're talking to. Mondays have become sort of Blue Monday for me, and I'm looking for ways to live more alive. So let's start with the profound question that you posed in your TED Talk, which is, how can death bring us back to life?
Yes. I love how you jumped right into the deep end of the pool. I love it. And if I could give the nutshell, and then you can poke around all the little parts you want.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive, but I assert that the idea, the contemplation, the regular reflection on our inevitable mortality is exactly the recipe for what I call kind of a life worth living, because we take life for granted, don't we? We all of a sudden realize, wait, it's almost spring. Like, what happened to January, February? What happened? Life passes us by unless we consciously stop and reflect on the fact that my time is ticking. It's limited. How many Mondays do I have left? And if you want, we can do that math. And that helps us to stop and say, whoa, I know rationally I'm not going to live forever, of course. But when I do the math and I figure out that I have 1,890 Mondays left to go, it makes me kind of take a different spin on them compared to just the, I'll have time to do that later kind of ethos. So I say that it's the very thing that can help snap us to attention.
I really love that, because I feel like for most of us, we feel stuck in the day-to-day, the chores, the job we hate. And you say you broke out of that because when your mom passed at the age of 50, was it?
Well, yeah, she was 58. Yeah.
58. Oh,
yeah.
So I'm someone who really doesn't like to think about death. It puts me in freeze mode. It doesn't really make me, it doesn't, I just don't know how to deal with it. And I realized actually that it's getting worse, because yesterday even my daughter said to me, Mom, why don't you ever finish a book? Why don't you ever finish a series? And I realized it's that I hate that finality. And especially the older I get, the more it seems to be seeping into different things. I'm 46 now, and I think I just have become one of those people who puts it to the back.
Yes. Well, I think that let's just celebrate for a second that I think all this makes you so fabulously normal. I think that this is the human condition, is that we don't want to face what's called the terror. So there's actually research around this, that their researchers have come up with terror management theory. And I won't bore you with it other than to say, as humans, we are the only species that is really aware of our mortality. And it does instill terror, because we do tend to have a desire to live on, right? And ideally live on well. And so we have a hard time reconciling the fact that, oh, right, it is going to come to an end. And so we do a fabulous job of denying it.
Yeah.
And there is a cost to that, though. And so it does exact a price of us avoiding that whole concept that we started with, which is if we can sprinkle a little bit of scarcity, can that be the very thing that helps us to live with more intention? Of course, I'm biased. The answer is yes. But back to your point about what I hear as like a normal case of sort of death anxiety of not wanting to go there.
Yeah.
There's really cool research out there that there's a real relationship between people who are fearful of death, especially near the end.
Mm-hmm.
There's a relationship where they feel like they have a lot of their life left unlived. That's a bit of a tongue twister.
Uh-huh.
And then the antidote really in one way is to get on out there and fully participate and live life like we mean it.
Mm-hmm.
And that tends to kind of remedy some of that feeling of death, because oftentimes it's the feeling, the death incites the fear that we haven't lived life well or enough, right? So
yeah.
Let's get on with living, and then that helps to remedy some of the anxiety.
I hear everything you're saying, but I think I've become aware lately that a lot of the things that I loved doing when that made me think, okay, I'm really living life, no longer inspire me in the same way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what does that say then in terms of living a more meaningful life once you hit? I think it's easier maybe when you're in your 20s because you kind of know maybe this is exciting, it's all new to you, right? I want to travel more, I want to see this beach, and I want to date this guy, or I want to, you know, there's just things that you have in your head of I'm living my life. But maybe that changes when you get into your 40s and 50s.
Yes.
And so what does that then mean for people in my age group?
Yes. Okay. So I love this because there's direct research. It's called socio-emotional selectivity theory. And that sounds really complicated for something that's actually pretty simple. And it is exactly what you've said, that our priorities do change as we age. So in the beginning of our lives, 20s, 30, 20s especially, everything's about novelty, knowledge acquisition, cool, fun times, right? And this is where I liken it to like widening our lives with vitality. So much fun, so much pleasure, so many cool things. And then as we do age and our perspective changes based on our experience in life, we tend to value more meaningful relationships and connection a little bit more, and more of a sense of having meaning. And that's the framework I look at in terms of deepening our life with meaning. So this is not true for everybody, and I want to ask you in a minute, but typically as we age, there's more of a desire for meaning, connection, and that kind of the longing for more depth rather than the breadth. Yeah. And so I don't know, because so for some people that really does resonate. I mean, this typifies most aging humans. Yeah. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, completely. That's exactly how I feel. It's just that I sometimes feel like I've lost touch with what deep is for me, because so for example, a lot of times you think, okay, I need to care about the world more, and and it's almost always the things that we're not really in control of that make us feel like that would be more meaningful and that is more deep to focus on. And then once you start on that path, you actually realize, I'm effecting no change.
Yeah. Well, I hear from you in that a little bit of a symptom of being an achiever. So what I'm hearing is that there's a longing to have some kind of meaning and impact, or some kind of purpose, right? That feeling of I'm doing something good for the world, or something that feels like a good contribution. But then there's that little thing in our voice, which is usually the mark again of an achiever, which is it enough? And don't you just wish we could untangle that and just be like, screw you, voice in my head. It doesn't have to be enough. It's just nice that I showed up on the one day and did something at my kid's school. Or it's good that I did have a deep conversation with a friend who was going through something. Isn't that enough? And so that is often the challenge is,
I love that.
Self-judgment.
Yeah, right? Because I do a lot of that in my life, but I don't see that as big and meaningful.
Yes, that self-imposed pressure to have all of a sudden more purpose or meaning is sometimes a trap, when if we do stop and look at the life we're living, like think about the things that do actually make you feel content after you experience them. That might be the indication that, in short terms, in the School of Positive Psychology, is like, do more of that. Do more of the stuff that does make you feel really kind of good afterwards. Or uplifted or inspired or fulfilled. And maybe give yourself credit that you're already doing a lot of that, right?
Yeah. You say that there's a lot of research that can help us live more positively. What can we do to live more positively? So you wake up and you immediately, like if you watch the news, there's been an earthquake today, there's been this, immediately you get into that meaningless place, like right at go.
Yeah, there's no shortage of negative information out there to feed our negativity bias. Like, we could go for days and months for the rest of our lives just consuming catastrophic stuff. So we do need to override it often.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I find really cool and inspiring is that it is more within our control than we think. And so our genetics do account for a huge chunk of whether or not we're going to be, optimist or pessimist. Circumstances, of course, will prevail, and it may determine whether or not we're going to be gleeful on a certain day or down. But research does show that about 40% of our quote unquote sense of happiness, like our perceived life satisfaction in the moment, is a direct relationship about what we're choosing to do or not do. Right. And there is research around, like, there are 10 kind of easily accessible positive emotions. So things like joy, like interest, like which could come from being curious, or inspiration, or serenity, pride, love, and a few others where we could consciously tap into that. Mm-hmm. And then watch how there's this concept called broaden and build. Let's just say, did any of those resonate with you anyway? Like, was inspiration or pride, anything?
Yes,
on that list?
Yes. I'm noticing the difference in when I've done something that I can be proud of. It could be even something small, but sometimes actually I find this goes actually to the next thing I wanted to ask you, which is how do we break free from this stupor of Netflix and Bravo and it's like, how can you even be proud of your day when majority of the time you feel like you've been hijacked?
That is such a good way of putting it. And for the record, I get hijacked every night by Netflix or Hulu or
at least it's night, because you'll have had a productive day. For me, sometimes, honestly, I'll just go on my phone and it'll be a WhatsApp. I'll click on that thing that a friend sent, and it's now sent me into YouTube. Yes,
oblivion. Right. Well, I'm gonna cover that because I'll finish the point about that choosing your positive emotion, because it might link back into this. I'll make sure it does. Like, we have the ability to construct essentially our days for the most part. And mm-hmm. So if I know, for example, like you talked about pride a second ago, maybe feeling that sense of pride about accomplishment, maybe, or something that made you feel good.
Yeah.
We can organize, let's just say you're starting off your Monday. You could have a little file where you have a list of your accomplishments, things that you kind of feel kind of proud of that you did, and they don't need to be magnanimous. We're not all winning awards out there. Sometimes it's just you feel proud that you really buckled down and got an annoying job done, or that you got good feedback from somebody, or that you did go ahead and do 10 push-ups, or whatever a small thing is that you feel good about. I encourage keeping a master list of things that I feel not bad about myself for.
Yes.
Go back and revisit that. I have a warm and fuzzy file folder in my email where I will every now and then, when I want to get a little bit of a boost, go back and read something that someone said something nice about something I said or did or wrote or whatever. And so if you spend just a few minutes consuming that content, that's going to change your outlook on the next 10 minutes, 15, 30 of your life, right? And so that is an example where we have choice points all through the day. Yeah. And to be super honest, it's one of our greatest fears in life. Some existential psychologists say that freedom is one of our biggest sources of anxiety, because we do have the ability to tune into all the shows, all the news, all the things that are going to suck us away from, quite frankly, living with more purpose and intention, right? So, but it's enticing, because sometimes it feels like we get to zone out. It feels delicious. Social media and television, it's designed to keep us there, and so we're kind of fighting an uphill battle. Mm-hmm. But at the choice point, when you said you're on WhatsApp or whatever, you go to click something, that's just a moment where it takes almost like flexing a muscle, saying, "Oh, wait, do I want to go down this rabbit hole right now, or
Mhm.
would it actually fill my soul just a teeny bit more, maybe to read a little bit of a chapter in a fiction book that I started because I never read fiction? Or would I rather go and start to just maybe write a couple things in a journal, like gratitude journal instead? Or, and the list is enormous, but the
Yeah.
thing is, you need a list of alternatives
Yes.
to watching the thing or playing the thing or doing the thing. Just but a couple little tiny, or I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, this is ridiculous, but I love it. I just last week tuned into this website where you can watch live camera feedings of animals. And so I swear to you, when I have like a 5 minute break in a day, I watch kittens in a shelter playing with each other, or I'll watch a bald eagle in its nest over its egg, or like it's called explore.org. And
Yeah.
that's even a 5 minute little fun thing that I will do instead of consuming mindless, stupid material that does make me feel like when you've consumed that stuff in the middle of a day, do you end that feeling uplifted, or do you feel kind of empty inside, or is it neutral? What's it like?
Well, so lately, I've started doing a little bit of what you do, what you suggest. So there's this channel that I follow. I think it's a family who live on a farm in Azerbaijan or one of these countries, and they literally live off of the land. And there's so much really beautiful footage of the cat chasing the kitten, and what it's done for me, this is just how crazy my mind is. It's made me think that's where I should live. I should go to move to the countryside. I need more nature. But I'd be
Oh.
bored probably. Who knows?
Well, okay, I like how you're listening to yourself because, well, first of all, that is a fantastic alternative to the mindless consuming news that often doesn't leave us feeling good inside. It leaves us feeling empty or that hollow. Um, so watching nature is a really good proxy, but I don't know if you have to move there. I think that you do need more doses of it. Uh, and again, this is based in what a ton of psychological science says, is that even 20 minutes outdoors in a green space can be restorative to our well-being, almost as though we've gone on a retreat.
Yes.
So all we need are these little bits and pieces. Now I know, you're right downtown, you're not getting a ton of green space, but
Yeah.
even any
Well, we
little
have lots of parks. I'm just being
Oh.
lazy, to be honest, because it's cold and I'll make excuses. I'll say, oh, it's raining. And then my daughter will say, I don't really feel like going out. So then I'll use her as an excuse.
Oh yes, that's very, very. I get that. Uh, and again, let's manage our
But no.
expectations. It doesn't necessarily mean a lot. Like I feel like most of us put this pressure on ourselves that we all of a sudden have to live a life where we're always going out to the park or we're doing it regularly. You know what? We're actually kind of adaptable. Where even if you bundled up and went once every couple few weeks, even
Yeah.
that can be restorative enough to give you a boost that you can ride the wave of for a little while. And so I feel like let's just even go with like once a month. Just get it and feel like you checked a box
Yeah.
and not deny that like we underestimate how much value we'll get even off small doses of things.
Yeah. Because I find actually it's so weird. I've noticed in the last few years, especially since COVID. I don't know if COVID kicked in a different level of my awareness, where I've realized that in the summer I put so much pressure on myself to have fun every single day. It's sunny. How can I don't want to be inside my house because it's sunny. I have to be out. But within a month or two, you're just thinking, okay,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
much
this
fun
is
does
not
a girl?
sustainable. Yeah. Well, that goes back to, I think, rhythms. Like, all right, you're stuffing more fun in it. And I would say that you probably have just by nature of your climate. Like, you've got an annual rhythm in a way where I hear you maybe beating yourself up about being kind of just insular or watching the TV stuff or whatever, when maybe that is kind of your winter pattern and
Yeah.
you have more of an activity in the summer. So that could be a feature. But I also look at like, what about just designing our lives? Take the pressure off. Look at the calendar.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
do you have something to look forward to within the next week and month and quarter? Those three timelines I think are important. And it doesn't have to be looking forward to a massive trip, although that's lovely.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can just be something as amazing as like a really great dinner or a happy hour with a friend. But like, and for you, do you have something on your horizon, on your calendar that you're looking forward to?
The next week, my daughter's on half term, so I've got a lot of activities planned.
Yeah.
Um, I think what happens is for most of us, and I hear this a lot of moms say this, we forget what it is that brings us joy. So we're doing every activities for the child. It's their play dates, it's this, it's that. So I can't even tell you. I used to know, okay, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
That's kind of slowly. I have to go so deep to figure out, oh yes, this excites me now.
Yes.
I don't know if you can relate, but that's how I feel sometimes.
It's a major issue for adults. I'm so glad you brought this up.
Yeah.
So when I will work with people or groups, I find at first I found it kind of shocking and amusing, and now it's just, okay, this is how this works. We've lost touch, especially caregivers. So typically it's female, but it doesn't have to be. People who look after other humans and raise them and or have other, you've lost touch of what the stuff is that may even bring you some joy. A lot of the women I work with, busy, successful professionals, they're like, I don't even know what my favorite foods are, my favorite color. Like, I don't even know anymore. What do I know? And so that's okay.
Yeah.
That's the opportunity to start a list. And you chip away at it. And every now and then you write a little thing down like, you know what? It really brings me joy to tinker in the garden. Boom. It really brings me joy to, and I always use the example because this is true for me, like to just browse in a bookstore.
Yeah.
It always brings me joy too. And you enter, it could be like starting a knitting project or whatever, researching a new topic or all sketching, doodling, anything. Keep adding to the list without pressure. But at some point, that list, so I'm working with a woman now who just reached, because she did it on Excel, because she's like super organized in that way. She has a list right now of almost 100 things. And many of them are very, 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 I just encourage, make it goofy, like in the summer, walking to the corner store for a popsicle, something, but just little, like, they could be cheap and cheerful. Yeah. Some of them could be bigger scale things. But then all we get to do is say, okay, this is my menu of things that I know bring me such delight. And so if I look at my calendar, when can I just fit it in? And so what are examples of little, even tiny little things that you used to like?
I've really enjoyed, actually. I didn't think I would, but I'm starting to enjoy cooking a little bit more. I love riding a bike in the park.
Ooh.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. I used to love movies. I think the problem with me is everything that I used to enjoy was around media. And I just don't enjoy it anymore. Like, I don't enjoy going to the movies anymore. I can't sit through a film. That's been a big shift for me, and it's kind of left a hole. But there's a part of me that thinks maybe I need to actually socialize more or go dancing. I would love to learn a new dance. Maybe that sounds to me.
Ooh, okay. You've just hit so many little highlights here, which can I just comment?
Yeah.
You're noticing that the stuff that used to light you up no longer does. And that's okay, because I think that that's just a reflection of an evolving, maturing human, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean you ditch that stuff forever, but it's okay to acknowledge now there is something, a hole left behind. And what you did was exactly the thing. Maybe it's being social. Maybe it's trying a new dance. You highlighted biking in the park. So here's where, for people who experience that thing called engagement, is one of the pinnacles of well-being.
Yeah.
And so being engaged in your life, finding an activity that you get maybe swept up in, experience that thing called flow. Oftentimes we expect it to find us, and we need to go out there and give it a try. Mm-hmm. So for you, for example, with the dance thing, now that might be a double winner, because you might go and do it with a friend, so it's social, and you get to do it. What kind of dance would interest you? Do you have a thought?
Like salsa. I love a lot of the Latin dances, but I feel sometimes like I've got two left feet. Like, they're so, like, I can move instinctively, but the way they move with the feet, that for my brain. It's always so hard, and I always end up giving up and just moving my body while they look all elegant and cute.
Right. So, well,
I'd love to learn it and be really good at it,
Okay. So that might take a little bit of overriding some of the, I hear a narrative in your head about not good enough, and then feeling embarrassed. And then, you know what? You darn well could learn. And so that's an example to me of give it a go.
Yes.
And if after, I always think, like, I like to swiftly abandon things that are not delivering, but not if I am just afraid of looking like a fool. I got to give that a go a few times. So, but if you truly don't like salsa after your third lesson, you think that this is just I'm not looking forward to it, well, then leave it.
Yeah.
But the point is, sign up for the class and give it a go, because we owe it to ourselves to give things a try to see if it catches fire.
Actually, this is making me excited. Just the thought of actually pursuing a life where you're starting to ask those questions of what can I create a list of things that excite me, that make me happy.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
so simple and okay, so I want to also not just make it about me. Let me ask questions that I know are for other people. So let's say someone is struggling. They're at a stage in their life where they're going through a health challenge or the death of a loved one or serious financial difficulties. I mean, I think most people can relate to having some financial difficulties, but let's say there are people who are super, super stuck, completely in debt.
Yeah.
How do these people not see that as a final in their chapter?
What a good point. My first thought is one that I want to be careful how I express, because I never want this to sound convenient or dismissive. Okay, so with that disclaimer, oftentimes it's the struggle and the loss and or the grief and or the disappointments and challenges, the crap of life. It's that very stuff that, of course, we would seek to avoid. We're not idiots. But that's the very stuff that most of the things that meaning is made of. And so while we're in the midst of it, I think it's very important to not avoid it. Feel your feelings, wallow for a bit, go see a therapist, spend time experiencing what it feels like, the fear, the shame, the anxiety, all the gross parts of it. Don't avoid it.
Yes.
Also recognize that there's this goodness that comes from the trial and tribulation. And, most of us as humans, we're very adaptive. So let's just take like financial ruin, a really fun one, for example.
Yeah.
Research shows that most people bounce back after a significant adversity to kind of like a set point. Now, research also shows that people will adapt. It's called the hedonic adaptation. After something fabulous, they'll also adapt back. So you move to paradise and you think your life's going to be amazing forever. Yeah. You know what? After about 9-10 months, you're like, well, my life's my life. Just because I have a better view of the beach doesn't make my life perfect, right?
Yeah.
So typically after something like a bankruptcy or a big financial glitch, we might feel the repercussions from it, but oftentimes we elicit more meaning from it. See ourselves in a new light, see our relationships in a new light, approach life differently, and sometimes even better. There's a fabulous concept which I never want to impose on people, but often there's something called post-traumatic growth, which occurs when any kind of trauma has happened. So say it is a divorce or a death of a significant other or bankruptcy or something that feels catastrophic to us, true trauma.
Yes.
Oftentimes, people will emerge through that at a higher level of psychological functioning than before the trauma even happened. And that's because we are able to make sense of something and then make meaning from it and then integrate it into our lives in a way that, quite frankly, that all roads with me lead back to mortality, right? We have a newfound appreciation for our lives.
Right.
When we experience hardship and we make it through, because we typically do.
Yeah.
Wow. Seeing the richness and the nuance of life can be even more poignant than just living a life that was pretty easy peasy the whole time.
That makes complete sense. I was watching this documentary about Bernie Madoff, and it made me think about how many people have gone through the same thing where they worked their whole lives and did everything they were supposed to do. You passed your grades, you studied hard, you got a job or you set up a business, saved just for in your retirement for somebody to just take all of that. And there's so many similar type of tragedies. How do you say, what do you say to somebody who's much older? Because if this happens to you and you're in your 20s or 30s, you can see it as an awakening. But if it happens to you in your 50s or 60s, it's a different thing. So how do you apply that same to that life stage?
Good question. I think it is still relative, right? So I think that acknowledging that, man, this is a super crap situation. So never trying to gloss over it. And I think that it comes back to values, right? So what is it that this person does value in life that might allow them to process that, what understand why they might be feeling bitterness or resentment or all the feelings that are going to be naturally occurring, and yet also, in addition to the ones that feel really negative, which ones are also there that are interesting about, well, given that this is the situation, what's possible?
Right. Yes.
What is there? If now this means that you're going to be working longer than you anticipated,
Yes.
well, let's already chalk that up to darn it all. Now over here, what could be kind of cool and exciting about it? Could this be another chapter for you? What could that look like? How do you want to design it? And we're not ever trying to imply that, well, now life can be better than it was before, although I will never not leave room for that. But I think that, again, we underestimate that we are resilient and we do find a way. Now, you want to be the person, though, like in this scenario, there are going to be some personalities that will grumble about it endlessly for the rest of their lives. And there will be some that'll just buck up and move on. And yeah, you know what? Acknowledge that it shouldn't have happened. And therein lies the difference between, I think, our choice in life on our attitude. Because I do think that we can be aware of and intentionally pick our attitude. So do we want to ruminate? If we catch ourselves and we're finding that we're that type of person that's ruminating endlessly, it's not productive.
No.
Then that's an opportunity to go and get great therapy and process it, and then get back on the horse of living life. Right. So, and I would also even just say, so even in the midst of this example of someone maybe in their late 60s going back to work in an unanticipated way, what else can you make sure you're doing in your life to make sure that you are also getting the vitality, so that with, what kind of fun things are you also doing to offset the fact that now, you're back at work and you didn't plan on it. So what do you want to do there? What kind of things might bring you so much more passion and enthusiasm in addition to working? So I think it's an and, not an or. It's, you're working and you're also having so much fun because you're learning how to play the ukulele and you are now socializing in a different way. So.
I really love that. Those are actually really important practical things, or a practical mindset that you can start to adopt. I wanted to talk to you about, you said in your TED talk, you talk about eating disorders. And I know there's so many younger people now, and actually even older people, who are struggling with eating disorders. How did you overcome that?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. It was a long road, because it was 10 years for me. And I tried at various points. And this is a good testament to how it's just never too late to try, to stop. Whatever, no matter what your addiction is. And I say addiction loosely because it could be addiction to anything that makes you feel like you're coping or numbing or, quite frankly, tranquilizing your life. And some of it is that awareness about, wait, there's life on the other side. And so in my case, it was just trying yet another time. Now, there was one defining moment. So I did it might have just been that there was a good combination for me of a therapist and nutritionist to help me. But I can't deny that I had a pretty significant thing on my horizon. And so I had applied for and got accepted into the graduate program for the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. I found out that I got in May, and school was starting in September. And I, quote unquote, got myself clean. I don't know how you want to word it, in June. And that's not a coincidence to me, right? Because I felt like, well, first of all, I thought it would be really sad to be studying about well-being and then barfing my brains out in between classes. That just somehow didn't seem like the life I wanted to be living. But having something that I felt like I was moving towards in a really significant way, honestly, it gave me something to hang on to. It gave me something that I wanted to be better for. And so I would never underestimate. Again, that's another example of find something that strikes your passion or interest and go and pursue it. Because it might mean for some people signing up for a volleyball class or course or program, or signing up, like just get yourself involved in something that might pique your interest, challenge you, make you feel like it's going to be part of the better version of yourself. So sometimes having that, signing up for something that is going to happen and then doing it will help in some ways hold you accountable to that, what they call in positive psychology, your best possible self.
Oh my gosh. You know what? Just hearing you talk now has made me realize
Yeah.
just how that was not in vain. The fact that you went on to do positive psychology and you're here helping us all and applying it in this way. You're right. Like if we look at life as meaningful, those
Yeah.
challenges can be actually what make us better, right?
Oh, so well said.
Mm. My last question is about regret.
Oh.
So, what do you think are the things that most people tell you they regret?
Mm-hmm. Hands down, they are regrets of inaction rather than action. And that's because our brains don't know how to process that too well. When we think the worry or the regret about something we didn't do, the path we didn't take, is far more confounding to the brain than, oh, I regret that I cheated on my boyfriend or that I did whatever. We can somehow make sense of that. But it's the dreams. And so this one, the range is wide, but the theme is about regrets of omission rather than commission. It's, man, I always wanted to, I always wanted to go back to school or to learn how to do salsa dance or whatnot. And that's the game I love to play is imagine you're on your deathbed. What are the things that you would give yourself that little kick for about not doing? And our lives are riddled with them. Let's be honest, we're never going to have enough time to do all the things that we might think sound kind of neat to do.
Yes.
But we know some of the things bubble up to our list higher than others that we would really just like. Maybe it's visiting a certain part of the world or spending more time with someone that we know and love and care about, learning a new language, the things that we just think, oh, that would have been so great. And that's right now I go, oh, that's fantastic because now's your chance to take that thing that you might regret not doing. And now you can take action on it today.
What if it's, the love of your life who's now married?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that ship has sailed. And so then we got to just process that.
So some of the regrets are for processing and kind of making sure that you don't miss the boat next time, right?
You know what? That is so perfectly put. That's right.
Yeah. No, I'm literally, there's a couple of guys in my life who literally said to me, oh my God, I can't believe she was such a good girl. Why did I let that go? And I was just thinking about them and thinking, yeah, what do you say to that? Now she has like 5 kids.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and then we do that thing about how my life could have been, and we could have then gone out to the vacation. You know what? Yeah, quit processing what could have been. Now focus.
I shouldn't have been a playboy and broken her heart. Yeah,
right.
There's nothing you can do about that. So let me see. I don't want to waste even 1 second. So tell me, there was I saw the Steve Jobs quote. You talk about that Steve Jobs quote?
Yeah, his Stanford commencement speech is worth watching. It's on YouTube, 20 minutes. There's a nice chunk about mortality. Yes. And he says that, death is life's change agent. There's nothing more powerful than being able to be aware of the fact that our time is limited. And that is exactly the message I love to preach myself.
This has been so amazing, honestly.
It's been so great chatting with you.
Oh, you know what? We have to do this again.